10 News reporter Tommy Lopez joins us tonight live from Randolph County. So Tommy, what have you learned?
We've learned more about how they found these two. We've also learned more about how the arrest played out. We know there was a swarm of law enforcement officers at this house, and we know that they're all very, very glad to know that this toddler is safe tonight and back with her family. We do want to show you this video. Our cameras were rolling as they took Kennedy in and out of another building for questioning. We saw this today at the Randolph County Sheriff's Office. The FBI and Secret Service were involved in this investigation. Danville police did head it up. So someone saw him. They saw Kennedy, they saw the toddler and the car, and they called police. Investigators followed that tip. They found them at a mobile home in Randleman. That's about 15 minutes north of here. They think he was moving locations since Sunday night and that he had gotten to that house earlier in the day. A North Carolina deputy rushed into that little girl. He scooped her up and he took her out right away. They say they took Kennedy into custody fairly quickly as well. He didn't react much to it all. And there were other people in that house, but police say that they are not going to say if anyone else is going to face charges.
Elsewhere, a Roanoke County woman says she's standing her ground right in the path of the Mountain Valley Pipeline. Like many pipeline opponents, she has been voicing her criticism of that project.
She says developers are taking land and could hurt the environment. She set up a makeshift treehouse hoping to block their progress. 10 News reporter Tommy Lopez has more on her protests.
A ways into the woods off Poor Mountain Road on Bent Mountain, a woman is sacrificing access to electricity, heat, and running water. She's asked us to call her Red. She's staying 30 feet up, protesting the pipeline's construction that will cross her property, stocked with soup, snacks, and sleeping bags. She says crews called the police yesterday to try to force her down.
I'm ready to take on this fight.
The 61-year-old is hoping to hold up construction as plans show the pipeline running through this private property and hers. She says she's going to stay up there as long as it takes. And this is how close she is to these markings that show where a service road is going to come through the property. Red is still up in these trees in Benton Mountain for the 28th straight day as police continue to keep watch here and support grows. There are signs all over the area and people camped out here to show support. MVP lawyers argue that the family members should have asked the tree sitters to leave. They say that these tree sitters could cost the company up to $250,000 if tree clearing begins while they're still up there. This is another example of people living near the pipeline's path dealing with erosion. The construction site is less than a mile that way, and mud has traveled down here and settled in, and there is sediment in this creek.
Our 10 News cameras were in the courtroom all day as David Eisenhower came face to face with the family of the young girl he murdered.
10 News reporter Tommy Lopez is live outside the Montgomery County Courthouse.
Tommy, this was an emotional day for Nicole's family.
Yeah, it is, and there were many emotional moments inside the courtroom today. So David Eisenhower does not get a life sentence, as this marks the end to one chapter in the Nicole Lovell murder case about 2.5 years after her death. As you said, Eisenhower is scheduled to spend now 50 years in prison. The defense continue to try to lay some blame on the other person accused in this case, Natalie Keepers. And Eisenhower, for the first time, said more than just yes or no publicly, and he apologized in court.
I am sorry for the pain that my actions have caused Nicole Lovell and her family. It is my deepest regret, and I'm aware my actions have serious consequences. Nothing can ever undo what has been done, and for that, I am deeply, sincerely, and forever sorry.
Well, we learned that these investigators, they expect to find answers to some of the biggest questions here. Two of those are why this truck was in the tracks and were the crossing guard gates down at this time like they're supposed to be. Investigators say they really expect to find answers here to both those questions. But first, we've learned more in the last hour about the people hurt in the truck. 28-year-old Chris Foley died, as we've reported. Dennis Eddy was hurt. We've learned that from the truck company. Also, Dana, with no last name. We know one is in critical condition tonight. There are GoFundMe pages for Eddy and for Foley's family. NTSB spokespeople just revealed federal investigators will be looking at video from a camera facing forward on the train. Yeah, officers spent time today going through simulations. They practiced scanning for threats both high and in front of them. As they approach a door, they're making sure they are prepared in the best way possible for an active shooter. And they study and change their strategy from each tragedy. And unfortunately, there have just been so many over the past few years. Yeah, there are still some dangerous conditions for drivers in Floyd County. We want to show you what the Little River looks like right now. You can see how fast it's still moving, carrying debris downstream. But the water levels have been receding a little bit. Where I'm standing right here was under a couple of inches of water when we talked to you at 5 o'clock. But the flooding has still blocked this road. This is a side road off of Route 8. We are south of Reiner here. People, for the most part, have been able to avoid trouble today, but there was a rescue in Floyd County.
After a Lynchburg mother was indicted on a murder charge earlier this month in the death of her daughter, 10 News is continuing to ask questions about the case. Documents show the process the mother went through to regain custody, and they reveal that social services workers considered allowing other family members to take care of the toddler. Reporter Tommy Lopez shows us the history of abuse in the first of 2 stories tonight on the Amara Lane case.
The death of Amara Lane is still puzzling to her father and his family. They were devastated when we spoke to them in August.
I don't know why nobody would do that.
I was just so heartbroken, and I was just in tears.
They're still searching for answers. August 11th. Amara's 20-year-old mother, Fantasia Lane, brought her 22-month-old daughter to Lynchburg General Hospital. Police were called. Because of how seriously Amara was hurt, they arrested Lane, and the toddler was taken to a Charlottesville hospital. The father's side of the family visited her there. Pictures show her on a ventilator, unable to breathe on her own. Days later, Amara died from her injuries. They say doctors told them the toddler's brain activity stopped. Documents given to 10 News show Amara was removed from her mother's care when she was just 3 weeks old. It was a, quote, emergency removal due to abuse and neglect out of concern for Amara's safety. And Amara was taken to a hospital with, quote, burns on her face and swollen hands. She went into foster care. Family members on the father's side say she was with the family for about 1.5 years. The documents show Lane was working with the Lynchburg Department of Human Services to get her daughter back. The plan included a parenting coach, counseling, a bus pass, and a living skills coach. A doctor said the young mother was dealing with depression, among other issues. And on a measure of her potential to abuse her child, her high scores would, quote, predict future child abuse. Amara's father and his family say they tried several times to get custody, feeling they had a strong case. Her grandmother, Sonia Woody, works with special needs children in Roanoke City Public Schools, and the department considered giving custody to them. In the end, a court later ruled for Fantasia Lane to get her daughter back. A Lynchburg woman, Cynthia Puryear, says she knows Lane and gave these photos to 10 News. She says they're from Lane's phone from this year and show bruises on Amara from when she was in her mother's care.
And when I saw her, she was a totally different child. She didn't smile. She didn't get there and went and play or anything.
Her son, Maurice Puryear, says he dated Fantasia Lane and spent time around Amara.
Now, see, the whole time, the devil was just in her. I just didn't know she was the type of person at all.
He says he would notice marks on Amara, but Lane would say accidents caused them. He believes he's the father of Lane's unborn child. Members of the Lane family have declined to comment to 10 News. Multiple people say they filed reports with social services during this time, including family members on the father's side and people who knew Lane. They say they're frustrated with social services and the court proceedings. Lane is charged with murder. Her case is scheduled to go to trial in March. We asked the Lynchburg Department of Human Services why Fantasia Lane was allowed to get her daughter back. They wouldn't talk about specifics related to the case, but they did give insight about how their process works. We'll tell you why the department doesn't have the final say about where children end up tonight on 10 News at 6. I'm Tommy Lopez, 10 News, working for you.